F1 Manager 24, the grid changes every race to the 2024 British Grand Prix. That is where we are at in this career mode. I think it's round number 6. And we have our new drivers for this race. So let's have a look at the grid. First of all, Carlos Sainz is with us at Williams, George Russell at Sauber, Lewis Hamilton at Haas, Alexander Albon at Alpine, Esteban Ocon at Aston Martin, Daniel Ricciardo at Alpine, Max Verstappen is back at Red Bull once again, Lando Norris at Ferrari, Kevin Magnussen also with us at Williams, Charles Leclerc at Sauber, Nico Hulkenberg at Mercedes, Zhou Guanyu at RB, Yuki Tsunoda at Haas, Lance Stroll back at Aston Martin again, Valtteri Bottas back at Mercedes, Sergio Perez at RB, Fernando Alonso at McLaren, Logan Sargent at Red Bull, Pierre Gasly at Ferrari, and Oscar Piastri back where he started at McLaren. So that is the grid order for this British Grand Prix. Going into it, we're going to design some new side pods, once again messing around, trying to actually not just go with a balanced setup, because it seems to help a little bit, I think, actually focusing on, the areas that we need to focus on with our car. So just messing around a bit here, see what we can do. I think for this one we're trying to improve engine cooling and high speed. So we're gonna do that, use a lot of money. We're down under $1 million now, and then we're gonna manufacture a underfloor that we designed, I think, last time out or the time before. I only have enough money to do one though, really. So we're gonna just manufacture one, but we should have that one ready for the next race. And actually, before we get to the next race, or to this race, we get some money from our sponsors, and we can then make the other 3, one for the second car and a couple of spares. So there we go. We're gonna get those manufacturing. And yes, we're ready to go for this British Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz and Kevin Magnussen in our car. And we'll see what we can do race targets wise. Our car is apparently 13th on the grid, so we're going to go for 14th or higher for Carlos Sainz. The second car of Magnussen only 16th because he doesn't have the new underfloor upgrade. We're going to go for 18th or higher for him because I think that's just a bit more reasonable. And here we have a look at R&D. We haven't moved from where we were at Williams. We're still under Haas, but with that one upgrade, focusing on a specific area of the car, it has been a bit better of an upgrade than some. Mercedes, though, have actually gone downhill on their upgrades, and they are almost now underneath RB. So Mercedes really falling off that top group. Red Bull had a pretty big upgrade up the front as well. But yeah, the bottom pack pretty much staying as they were. We're still behind Haas. I'm hoping that at some point this season we can get in front of Haas. That would be the big thing here. If we can, even just by the end of the season, if we can be one position higher than we are supposed to be, from where we started, that would be quite good. Q1, and yep, we're seeing how things are going here. Dry session for qualifying, of course. Sainz at the moment P2, a long way ahead of Perez, so he must have had a pretty poor lap in the RB. Magnussen goes third, quite a way off Sainz, and in the end, as we get to the end here, Magnussen is in the bottom 5, P17 currently. Sainz is up there in the top 10, so he should be safe. However, we are letting him go around again, but it is Magnussen on the lap at the moment. He was green through Sector 1, but then got massively held up in Sector 2 with a Ferrari, and I think it was a Mercedes ahead of him, and that's made his second sector very, very poor. And in the end, he's not going to improve his lap time. He's going to be out in Q1. It's P19 for Kevin Magnussen. What a terrible, terrible time. He's out in Q1 when he should have, well, at least been at the top of, the Q1, like 16th, 17th. He's P19. Sainz, though, does get through in P12. It was a good lap time from Carlos Sainz. He gets through to Q2, but yeah, big shock, big, just very, very poor from Kevin Magnussen there. But to be fair, he possibly would have got through, or would have at least been right up there if we didn't get blocked by cars at the start. You can see Carlos Sainz here also getting a little bit blocked by cars at the end there with I think that's an Aston Martin of Esteban Ocon just up ahead of us. But he actually manages to get through to Q3, P10 in the end. So Carlos Sainz through to Q3, that's pretty big news. Knocks out probably Pierre Gasly being the main one there in the Ferrari. He's out P14. He's been with Ferrari once so far this season. I think it was round 2 in Jeddah and crashed out, or got crashed out by, I believe it was Logan Sargent. Whereas this time, he, yeah, we'll see how he goes this time, but he's been knocked out in Q2, so not a great start for Gasly here. He's definitely not having the best time in this championship, as we have Carlos Sainz now on his final run in Q3, currently sitting P8. We're actually ahead of Stroll and Sargent at the moment, but I'm sure those guys will go quicker. However, Sainz is green through the first sector here on his final flying lap. Max Verstappen on provisional pole at the moment from Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri and Fernando Alonso in the 2 McLarens. We're 1.7 seconds back here with Carlos Sainz, but if we can get top, well, I mean, generally, even if we're P10, that's, you know, better than expected with this car in dry conditions as well. So, you know, everything is going to be a win here, but, you know, the better we can do, the better, of course. And we are going quicker. It's green through sector 2 as well, so Sainz is on a better lap here, but it's, you know, 0.6 of a second to Bottas, the car ahead. So I think it's going to be a bit of a push to make that work as Perez crosses the line, goes up to P5. Great lap for him in the RB. Sainz will be the next one to cross the line. Here he goes across the line, and he must have, no, he did improve. He did improve in that final sector, but unfortunately still not quick enough. And in the end, it's P9 for Carlos Sainz. We do beat Lance Stroll, so that's pretty good. And it's Max Verstappen on pole position. Logan Sargent does put in a good lap to be P2 for a Red Bull 1-2, but it's Carlos Sainz P9. That's more than I could hope for the Williams team. So let's see what this race has in store for the British Grand Prix.
52 laps around Silverstone await our drivers as the anticipation continues to build.
Silverstone is certainly a circuit rich in Formula One history, from Giuseppe Farina winning the first championship race held here in 1950, right through to Lewis Hamilton's 2008 masterclass on racing in the rain.
Silverstone demands a lot of power from cars with numerous twists and historic turns. Downforce is going to be a key factor to manage if teams want to succeed here. The excitement is building, there's electricity in the air, but there's no surprise in that. It's race day.
This is the setup for the race. It is going to be wet throughout the entire race, most likely. Starting on the intermediate tyres, going onto the wets, although the rain is all over the place for this race. So it could be an interesting one. That strategy is almost certainly not going to be the exact strategy we use, but it is into the start, so let's see how it goes.
Final checks are being carried out by the teams, and it won't be long until we get this race underway. And plenty of people watching on will be keen to follow Fernando Alonso's progress.
They're fourth on the grid, so I'd expect to see them mount a challenge for the top 3 in this race.
But remember, anything can happen in Formula One. Hold on tight, it's the British Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Here we go for the British Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz starting P9. What can he do in this race? It is intermediate conditions. It doesn't look like it is raining a little bit, but it's not crazy wet at the moment. It's already Sainz mounting a challenge on Nico Hülkenberg in the Mercedes, side by side with him, trying to take P8. So far, not lost a position, actually fighting ahead, and he gets ahead of Hülkenberg into the next corner and down this little mini straight here. Great work from Carlos Sainz. Norris has managed to get past Sargent and up into second place, so it's a good start for the Ferrari driver. But Verstappen still holds P1 at the moment. Magnussen hasn't moved up from P19. Is now still on lap number 1. We have a look back at Lando Norris once again, who seems to have a great run down the next straight into this next corner, and he's going for the move for the lead on Max Verstappen. Lando Norris up the inside, and he takes the lead at the end of lap 1. Lando Norris now leads the British Grand Prix for Ferrari. Verstappen's down to P2. Alonso is now fighting with Logan Sargent for P3. Watch him in this race in the McLaren. A very good car. Not quite as good as the Ferrari and the Red Bull on paper, but still a very good car so far this season. as he's still side by side with Logan Sargent round the next few corners, and he gets ahead. So that's now Alonso up into the podium positions. Looking at a replay here of Lance Stroll, who's sizing up a move on Carlos Sainz, who's dropped back quite a bit actually from the front group, and he goes for the move. I think by this point Hulkenberg's gotten back past Sainz. Stroll gets himself back, well, past in the first place because he was behind him to start with, but yeah, that is Stroll now up in position, and Sainz down to 9th. Actually, no, Hulkenberg was still behind Sainz. He's fallen back quite a few positions. It's on to lap number 6. We've already got cars coming in for wet compound tyres, so that is Sergio Perez in the RB onto the wet tyres. Here we have Kevin Magnussen going into turn 1 through turn 2, getting past one of the Alpines. Good to see Magnussen moving his way up the order. Now onto lap number 6, Sainz still driving here. We now got track conditions has changed to wet from race control. It is now wet weather conditions properly. You can see the rain coming down harder. We're in with Carlos Sainz for the wet compound tyres. It's a decent stop, a 2.5 second stop for the team. We're double stacking. There's a big enough gap that we can do that, and it is a similar stop for Magnussen, just about a tenth slower, 2.6 seconds. Both cars now out on the wet compound tyres. As now we've got Lando Norris, who's running wide, having a bit of an issue there. He was leading the race. I think he's now come into the pits for the wet compound tyres. Yes, he has. Some drivers have actually stayed out on the intermediate tyres, despite it definitely being wet enough for wets at the moment. Carlos Sainz now actually going to try and get past one of those intermediate tyre runners of Daniel Ricciardo in the Alpine. He goes round the outside of Ricciardo, and yeah, Ricciardo really struggling on those inters, but maybe trying to hold out because the rain is supposed to slow down a little bit in a few moments. Here is Alexander Albon in the other Alpine. I guess these guys, they don't have the pace, so they're trying anything they can to just stay ahead with the intermediate tyres and make them last in these heavier rain conditions, because you can probably already tell it's starting to look a little less wet now already. Still rather wet on the track, but the rain has definitely calmed down a bit, as Sainz still trying to find a way past Albon at the moment, can't do it though. Kevin Magnussen still making moves as well down the inside of Daniel Ricciardo, who is falling down the order on those intermediate tyres, but he's hoping that, you know, once this rain does ease off a little bit, that he will be in a better position. Sainz now finally gets himself past Alexander Albon into turn 1, and he's up another position, so working out well on these wet tyres for him at the moment. As we continue on next, we've got Kevin Magnussen, who I think is having a bit of a struggle here, locks up into that corner. It's not a terrible lockup, but it's not great, and that is going to, I believe, flat spot the tyres quite badly for Magnussen, and he's now got only 40% tyre wear, and now the tyres are getting very hot, 108 degrees, and we're not even really pushing on the tyres because the track is now drying out. We have a look at the track details here. You can see that big dip in the weather. It is starting to rain a little bit heavier once again, but I mean, Magnussen's had a big drop in tyres because of that lockup, and Sainz is also, you know, the tyres are just overheating because it's too wet. It's too wet, and now Kevin Magnussen has got a puncture. Sorry, it's not wet enough. Kevin Magnussen now has a puncture with those flat spotted tyres, and yet the rain is pretty much back again now. We're almost at wet weather conditions. We're pretty much at wet weather conditions again, but you can see the undulating nature of the rain there, so we're a little bit stumped as to what to do at the moment. And then only a few laps after Magnussen gets a puncture, Charles Leclerc gets a puncture in exactly the same spot. Verstappen is now P2, Norris is leading. I think Norris has a little bit of an issue though, as down this straight here, it's a pretty easy overtake, or maybe it's not. Norris is going to try and fight it back here into the next corner. Verstappen and Norris in Red Bull and Ferrari in this case here, unlike in real life, fighting it out for the lead of the British Grand Prix, but Verstappen will get ahead. Good work from him. Now we have a look at Sainz, who's coming in to the pits for another set of wet compound tyres, which wasn't really what I wanted to do, but at this current point in time, it is wet weather tyre conditions. it's possibly going to go back down to inters again, but we just wore out those wets so much in those inter conditions that I needed to come in for another pit stop, and going onto the inters just wasn't really going to work out. So this could be a bit of a detriment to our race here with how this works out. Stroll has a spin. Not so good for him. He's always having issues, this Lance Stroll, in this career mode. And he has another one once again there. Now we have a look at the track details once again. It is pretty much at the peak of wetness at the moment, but as you can see, it's going to start drying out again and getting to a point where we're back for, like, inters are going to be the tyre to go for. And once again, here we have a look. Track conditions have changed to damp, and that pretty much means that now the wet tyres are they're going to be overheating, and that is exactly what happens. Once again, we go through that cycle of getting the tyres way too hot, and the wet weather tyres, which is the last set of wet weather tyres we have, are now almost dead, and they're probably not going to last us till the end of this race, so we are in trouble here. Verstappen is actually now behind Alonso. It is now Fernando Alonso leading the British Grand Prix at this stage. He's doing a great job, although he is on older tyres. But then Sainz has had a problem. He had a spin. I think he's had a spin or something. Yes, he has spin on turn 6 for Carlos Sainz. We'll have a look on board with him. Here he goes round this left-hander and just spins the car round. Thankfully, no damage done, but yeah, just really struggling on those worn, wet tyres. Max Verstappen going for a move on Alonso, but Alonso brakes later. What a great bit of defence there from Fernando Alonso to stay ahead of the Dutchman and keep the lead of this race with 11 laps still to go. Lap 42, we have to come into the pits because our tyres are not going to last, and we have to come in for inters despite it still being now, you know, we've had that moment again where the rain went away. The rain has now come back again. It's now very much wet weather conditions, but I don't have a new set of wets to use, so I had to go onto the intermediate tyres with both drivers. We can push as hard as we can on those inters, but we're not going to be very quick because it is wet weather tyre conditions. Alonso and Verstappen still battling it out at the front. They've got a 20-second gap to Lando Norris in 3rd place, but Alonso's doing a great job at the moment to defend that position. Lap 48, Pierre Gasly's day gets even worse as he retires from the race straight into the garage with an issue. It's the first time I've ever seen that, actually. And things get worse for Kevin Magnussen as he is now battling with Charles Leclerc. And Charles Leclerc's going to get past him, and that's going to mean that Magnussen is in dead last place of the current drivers out on track. It's not gone well. It's not gone well for either of our drivers. We were looking at potentially scoring points with Carlos Sainz. He was up in P11 before I had to pit him again. He's now down in P17. And unfortunately for us, this race just has not worked out at all. Going from inters to wet, to inters to wet, to inters to wet. We didn't have the wet tyres to do that. We didn't get the strategy right. Maybe there was a few things we could have done, but it just didn't work out. But it's going to be Fernando Alonso who's going to win the British Grand Prix. He defends from Max Verstappen. What a drive from Alonso to win here for McLaren. His first win in a long time, and McLaren's first win of the season. What a result for him.
And it's Alonso edging out the other drivers to claim 1st place here today.
They can be really proud of what they've achieved today. A result like that doesn't just fall into your lap.
What a race from Fernando Alonso, beating Max Verstappen here he's in the 3rd quickest car, but he still won. Sainz is going to come home P17, and it's going to be P19 for Magnussen. Not the result we wanted at all, that's for sure.
That man up there is certainly no stranger to an F1 podium. Always great to see Fernando in the top 3.
And that's win number 1 of the season, and it's sure to provide them with a real confidence boost.
Well, we might be in Britain, but our podium finishers won't be celebrating with a cup of tea tonight. They'll be staying true to Formula 1 tradition.
3 different teams on the podium for, I think, the first time this season. We've always had like at least 2 Red Bulls or 2 Ferraris or something on the podium. This time it's a McLaren, a Red Bull and a Ferrari, and it is Alonso who wins. Verstappen comes second with the fastest lap though, so that's his best finish since round 1 where he won the Bahrain Grand Prix. Perez, can I just say, P4 in the RB. I mean, I know that car is almost better than the Mercedes now, but yeah, P4, what a result for him. And yeah, it is a race to forget for us for sure. P17 and P19. I think points for Sainz were probably not really on the table, but I think we could have finished P11, P12. But unfortunately, yeah, strategy did not work out. Carlos Sainz is still leading the championship though. I think this is now 3 races in a row that he's now still at the top of the championship. Verstappen now, though, up to P2, still 7 points behind Sainz though, and just 3 points ahead of George Russell. Kevin Magnussen, our other teammate this round, down in 10th. And Pierre Gasly is once again last position, P20 on 10 points because Piastri has moved up from that bottom position. Gasly has been at the bottom for a lot of this season so far. He is definitely wanting a break. And the constructors, well, it is still Red Bull quite far out in front. However, McLaren scored the most points that round. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.